Also want to welcome those of you joining us from CPA Academy today. Thanks for being there. So guys, while this content is prepared and geared for students, and Meet the Firms Week is a student conference, many of the sessions have applicable content no matter where you are in your career, just like this one. Just like Michael Elliott later today is going to be talking about the future of our profession around technology, billing, consolidation. You're going to hear us talking to students, but this is information that's valuable to your career too, whether you're a CPA or a student. Okay, guys, this event, Meet the Firms Week, is completely free for employers, for the hundreds of employers that signed up and the thousands of students who've signed up. So thank you to our sponsors, Gleim CPA Review, Wiley CPA Excel, Zero, and Surgent CPA Review. So Surgent CPA Review, a quick call out on them. They have built one of the top CPA exam products out there on the market today. They've been in the continuing education business for years, but now they are helping students pass a CPA exam. So hang tight. At the end of the webinar, I'm going to give you a link to download a free flashcard app from Surgent CPA Review. It has 2,200 definitions and terms on it. It is a fantastic app, useful no matter where you're at in the test taking process. So hang tight. At the end of the session, I'll give you a link for that. And that helps with all 4 sections of the CPA exam. Today, right now, the right internships are very valuable to the process, no matter where you are in the career. Whether you're a CPA looking to make a transition or you're a student looking for that first-time job, the right internship can make all the difference. We are in this webinar going to bring in Rebecca Tress here in just a second. Rebecca, she goes by Becky, is a partner at WellsColeman in Virginia, and she's going to talk about how to search for jobs in public accounting and jobs and internships, internship search advice. I'm going to ask her about using the internet for if you're not on campus, but just talk about the job search and internship search process. Let me tell you about Becky, and we're going to bring her in here. Becky specializes in audit and other financial statement engagements. She has more than 15 years of experience and joined WellsColeman in 2006. She's a graduate of Longwood University. She serves as a member on their College of Businesses Alumni Advisory Board. She's a member of the AICPA. She's a member of the Virginia Society of Certified Public Accountants. But most importantly, she understands the recruitment process and is going to give you an insider's look at finding jobs. So at this point in time, Becky, I want to bring you in and say good morning. How are you?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Glad to be here.
It's great to have you. I'm on webcam, but Becky is calling in, so she's going to go just over audio only. I'm going to get off my webcam here. I'll be back for polling questions, and Becky, as I get out of the way here, welcome. Thank you for being a part of Meet the Firms Week. We're so excited to have you.
Thank you. I'm excited to be doing this today.
All right, the floor is yours.
So as Jeff mentioned, I'm a CPA. I am a partner at WellsColeman here in Richmond, Virginia. I am not a human resource professional. However, I have been involved in a lot of on-campus recruiting for my firm, and I work very closely with Longwood University, which is my alma mater. Work very closely mentoring students and staying in touch with professors there on campus. So I'm very happy to be here talking to students today. So we're going to jump right in here. As you're beginning your job search process, you need to be thinking about where you want to go and where you want to be. I've got a quote here from Yogi Berra: "If you don't know where you're going, you'll end up someplace else." As we all know, Yogi Berra had quite a few of these very profound types of quotes. But this is true. You really need to decide early on where you're going. And how do you do that? Well, you have to start by doing some research and thinking about what motivates you. So you get to thinking about what your motivators are. What attributes do you value in a job? Is it achievement, loyalty, teamwork, recognition? You want to think about this and try to narrow it down to your top 5. If you're not really sure where to start, there are some tools out there. You can go out online and do a Strengths Finder exercise. This is something that was developed, and it's part of a book by Marcus Buckingham, which we'll talk about later in this slideshow. But basically, it's a test that you go through, and it comes up at the end and gives you your top strengths and tells you, where are the best places to focus your efforts. You want to find firms that reflect your interests and your values. Not every firm is for everyone. Not everyone is ready to. Not everyone is ready to go to work for a Big Four firm when they leave college. I've found a lot of times I'll speak to students and they'll say, I've already decided that Big Four is not for me. I want to go to a local or a regional firm, and that's perfectly fine. That's where you want to focus your efforts. Things that you'll want to consider when you're researching firms. What are their core values? And how do they mesh with my values? What types of work does the firm specialize in? If you're not interested in traveling, you certainly wouldn't want to go to work for a firm that does international work or that requires a lot of travel. What types of industries and clients does this firm specialize in? I knew early on when I was in school that I wanted to focus on audit. So clearly, I didn't want to spend time interviewing with firms that did tax only. So these are just some things to think about as you're narrowing your search down. Today with the internet, you can learn just about anything about anyone or any firm. You can go in and learn about the firm's employees. Do their employees have interests that are similar to yours? Typically, you're going to find biographies on the websites. So definitely do your homework before you even begin your search. As you do begin your search and start to talk to firms, you want to stick with these values that you've identified. If they don't mesh well, you want to keep looking. You don't want to just pick the first firm that gives you an offer just based on the fact that it's going to be a paycheck once you graduate. You want somebody that's going to be a good fit, because speaking from experience, the worst thing that you can do is take a job just to get a paycheck and be trying to spend all of your time working and also looking for another job. When I left school, the job market was tight. I went to work in retail. It was very difficult to keep up the hours in retail and also search for another job. So definitely start early, do the research, figure out what's right, and focus your efforts on where your interests lie. I think it's already time for a polling question, so Jeff's going to jump in and do that.
You got it. Becky, so we're asking everybody just to check in and see who you are, what you're doing. Maybe if you're a student, freshman, sophomore, or junior. If you're a student, you're a senior or master's. It's important that we could ID sort of like where you're coming from. Maybe you've graduated, or maybe you don't fit into the picture at all. So because there's a handful of grads on the call as well, Becky. So a great deal of the audience is, as we're wrapping up the poll here, is sort of non-traditional. Also, roughly 20% is a master's, 10% are seniors, and 12% are freshmen and sophomores, and another 10% have graduated. So it's actually across the board, but the largest population of students are pursuing their master's degree, and the largest overall is sort of non-traditional, kind of trying to figure out. And I'm curious, for those of you who are non-traditional, and I'll manage the question panel, is if give me some ideas, and I'll ask some questions of Becky at the end. What is your circumstances, and why are you looking for an internship? And maybe we can help you out on the call. So I'm going to close the webinar, Becky, and hand it back over to you.
Okay, great. Well, I'm actually glad to hear that we have a lot of non-traditional students out there. I think this next section will be helpful, and I would encourage you to please send in your questions as we're going through this, because we're going to talk about networking, and I know that that's not everyone's favorite subject, especially Typically, accounting majors are not always real excited about networking and the prospect of going out and meeting people and having to carry a long conversation. So we're going to talk about networking. This is probably the best and most preferred way to find a position. Obviously, answering help wanted ads and web surfing isn't the most efficient way to go. According to research, at least 70% of jobs are not published. I've got some results from a 2012 study here of more than 46,000 individuals seeking employment. Networking was 46% effective at helping these people find jobs. I went in and looked for some more recent studies. I found a 2014 study which had similar results. It was showing that 40% of the people that responded stated that they found their positions through networking and referral sources. Recruiters also place referral sources and networking very high on their list of high-quality applicants. In one particular study that I looked at, 64% of recruiters ranked candidates from referrals as the highest quality. So certainly getting out and meeting people is the best way to get your foot in the door in an accounting firm. So I know you're all sitting here shaking your head saying, I really don't like to do this. How do I do this? I don't know anybody. How am I gonna do this? So we'll talk a little bit about some simple ways to start networking. One of the easiest ways, and by being on this call you've already done this, is to get involved with trade associations, the AICPA, your state society of CPAs, business groups within your school. I work with a few schools that have business fraternities. They have accounting associations, accounting honor societies. These groups are just wonderful ways to start your networking efforts. They will typically bring in speakers, people for you to network with. They'll do networking presentations. So this is just a great start. You know, years ago, I had a partner at a firm tell me, don't just be a member on paper, be an active member. And that's not as difficult as it may seem either. Being an active member can be as simple as volunteering to be on a committee to plan an event. You would not believe the amount of people that you meet by doing something as easy as volunteering on a committee within a professional association. You can blog. You can go on LinkedIn and write about your experiences. These are all great ways to network. If your school offers a mentor program where you may connect with alumni, certainly join that. And again, actively participate. Don't just be a member on paper. Don't be shy to ask people for referrals to other people in their network. I have found that typically when you meet someone that is an alumni of the school where you are attending, they're going to go out of their way to answer your questions and to introduce you to other people in their network. And you would be very surprised to find that accountants seem to know everyone. I just continue to be amazed at the number of connections and the number of people accountants know and are able to refer. You might consider doing some business cards with your university's logo and your relevant information on it. This is an example. Don't try to call the number because this is a fictitious person, but this is an example of a business card. You know, hand these out when you're meeting people, when you're going to these networking functions. Don't be shy, hand them out. And certainly ask if you can follow up, maybe have coffee with that person. Like I said, most professionals are very willing to go out of their way to speak with you and to help you and to introduce you to other people within their network. This next suggestion was one that I didn't think of. It was actually suggested by the author of one of the books that I'm going to talk about at the very end of the presentation. Keeping a networking log. So let's say that I go to an event that's hosted by the Virginia Society of CPAs, and I meet 3 different people that I'm really interested in following up with. Well, I've gotten their business cards. We've made our introductions. The event's over. I go home that evening, and I go to my networking log, and I'll write down the person's name and where I met them and what they do and what the next steps might be. Maybe I want to follow up with that person through a phone call, or maybe I want to send them an email and say thank you. This is just a really great way to meet people. And with the networking log, you certainly have an opportunity to follow up later on and see how these people are doing. So I just thought this was a really great idea. When you leave the event, obviously one of the other things you're going to want to do is connect with the people that you met via LinkedIn. I'm going to talk a little bit about a LinkedIn profile. You want to make sure that you have a dynamic LinkedIn profile that really talks about you, who you are, what you want to do. This is just a sample. So if I were to go to this person's LinkedIn page, I can see what they're looking for and maybe have a discussion with them and say, okay, well, I see that you're interested in working as an intern at a public accounting firm and you want to work with small businesses and high net worth individuals. Here's an accounting firm that I know of in the area that does this kind of work, and here's somebody I know. So certainly making sure that you have an updated LinkedIn profile and actively managing that profile, like I mentioned before. Blogging via LinkedIn, writing articles. There's just such a wide variety. Just being very careful in managing that network. Okay, it looks like it's time for polling question number 2.
I'll fire it up. Here we go. So curious what you have done so far to land an internship. You've participated in on-campus recruiting. You can select more than one, guys. On-campus recruiting events like a Meet the Firms event, on-campus interviews. I've reached out to my state society, proactively reached out to employers. How are you guys trying to find internships? Becky, I totally agree with your assessment on LinkedIn. It's an invaluable tool, and that's a great way to write a profile, how you had that earlier. I mean, just the more direct you can be, what you're looking for, the better. And so, Becky, I'm going to show the results because I'll give everybody about 5 more seconds to submit an answer. So just click as many answers as you have done and then hit submit, please. Cool. So we've got about 80%. I'll go ahead and close the poll in 3 seconds. And Becky, just so you know, I'm going to show the answers. I think you might be able to see these. And I'm going to share these results. And Becky, can you see that?
I do not see.
Okay, then I'll read them to you. So 60% have proactively reached out to employers. I love seeing that, by the way, because I like the assertiveness. Of course, there's a right way to go about that, and I may ask you about that in a minute. 56% have participated in on-campus recruiting events. 37% participated in on-campus interviews. 14% have contacted my state society, and so I'll hide the results and bring it back to you to comment.
Okay, great. So as Jeff mentioned, it sounds like 60% of everyone attending today has already reached out to prospective employers. I suppose my next comment on that would be, how many of you have a contact within those prospective employers, somebody that you know? It could be someone that graduated from your school. It could be, a friend of a friend. It could be somebody that's connected through a family member. That would be an interesting thing to know, because again, the most quality hire, the highest quality hires are those that have come from referral sources. And I'll share how I landed my job here at WellsColeman years ago. I wasn't even looking for a job. I was very happy with the job that I had. I had been with a regional public accounting firm for about 6 years at that point. So a friend of mine had actually reached out and she said, look, we're looking for somebody with the amount of experience that you have. The partners here would really like to talk to you. There's a lot of advancement potential. So I said, okay, well, I'm not looking. What have I got to lose? So I came in and I chatted with the partners and actually ended up staying where I was after that initial interview. But several years later, I got that call again from my friend. She was a friend of mine from college, and she said, look, the partners at this firm really like you. They would really like for you to reconsider. Come in and meet with them, chat with them. So I did, and really the rest is history. WellsColeman did not advertise for that position. As I mentioned earlier, over 70% of positions available are not advertised. I didn't really have to do a whole lot of work on my end other than prepare my resume and come in and sell myself. It was really just a great way to find this position, and another testament to the referral source. The whole process is, I had another friend who wasn't really actively looking for a position, but I thought she was going to be a good fit here too. So I referred her. Lo and behold, 8 years later, she's also a partner here at the firm. So referral sources are just the best way to get a job anywhere. So I would certainly encourage that. If you're not sure if you know anybody within a firm, again, go out to their website, look at their staff's biographies, see if you have anything in common, if there's any way you can possibly connect with them, phone conversation, coffee. I might find somebody, again, that's a friend of a friend or an alumni from the same university. If you have things in common, these people are going to want to talk to you.
Hey, Becky, I just was posting out to the audience what great advice that is. I think of the people who are probably reaching out to firms, it's probably mostly cold calling, and that's okay. Sometimes you have to do that, but knowing the people, and you do that through networking, and I know that is a big topic that you're advocating here is good networking for accounting students. Boy, if you know somebody, that is the number one way that people get hired today. And your story is a perfect example of that. Thank you.
It really is. And, I'll be the first to tell you that years ago, if somebody told me to go out and network, I would have told them they were crazy. I hated it. I didn't like just walking up to random people and introducing myself. But that's not really all networking is about. You connect with people through common interests and warm introductions, basically. So I'm going to jump over to some of the resources that are available through your college and university. And for those attendees that are outside Virginia, I'm sorry, we've got all Virginia schools here. So we picked our favorites in Virginia, basically, here and posted them. But a lot of times you don't think about these resources that are available through the university, and they're free to the students. So you really want to look at using these. The first group of people you should think about talking to are your professors. Just ask them. Are there any successful alumni that you still keep in touch with? Are there any firms that you are in touch with that you would recommend that I contact? Your professors are going to be, just a great source of information there because they know you and they know the firms. So certainly talk to them first. Visit the Career Center located at your university. Again, I think this is really an underutilized resource. The people at the Career Center can help you with your resume. They can help you, as far as proofreading it. They can look at the format and give you suggestions on what the best way to compose that resume would be. Career Centers typically offer mock interviews, which is a really great resource. I sometimes find that students are more nervous during a mock interview than they are during an actual interview. But these mock interviews really provide you with an opportunity to meet not only prospective employers, but just alumni and others. Very valuable information there. And then a Career Center can also provide you with some data. Where are the recent graduates working? Are there any particular companies in the area that hire a lot of our recent graduates? Here in Richmond, the Federal Reserve Bank hires a lot of students from Longwood. So if I were to go to the Career Center and say, well, I see the Federal Reserve Bank hires a lot of Longwood graduates. How do I go about applying there? And is this a good fit for me? Again, free resource, easy way in. The alumni network is also a great way to meet people and get some information on prospective employers. I know a lot of the schools offer alumni outings. So even as a student, you are welcome to join those events. They're usually fun events, baseball games, football games, just all kinds of nice laid-back type events, low pressure. Of course, there's the job fairs, and it sounds like a lot of you have already attended the job fairs. Obviously, you want to make sure when you attend these job fairs that you have a clean copy of your resume ready to hand out. One of the things that I've run into with students is that they'll be running into the job fair at the last minute. They don't have a copy of their resume. They don't have anything to hand me, which is unfortunate because when I leave the job fair, I'm not going to remember that particular student. It's going to be very difficult for me to get in touch with them, even if they did have a great presentation. Just have that information ready well in advance because it seems like no matter what, some crazy thing happens the day of the job fair. The computers are down, the printer doesn't work, something crazy happens. So I would encourage everyone to have that information ready ahead of time. Another piece of advice I would give to anyone attending a job fair would be to show up at the job fair presenting yourself as you would at a job interview. You don't want to go to a job fair with your backpack and have to dig around through your backpack to find your resume or to find a pen. Come in with the portfolio, with your resume ready, and have a couple of pens in case you need to write something down. That sounds pretty basic, but it does happen. So I think we are at a stopping point again, Jeff. If you're ready for another polling question, or if there are any questions coming in from the participants.
I'm going to launch the polling question. So, guys, do you have prior internship experience? And Becky, we are getting a lot of questions just about, I'm a non-traditional student, and I'm looking to make a break from industry into public. And I'm experienced, but maybe an internship is the right way to get into public. That's a question we've seen a lot. You can ponder on that, but I'm curious if the audience has done an internship before or not, and we'll give about 10 more seconds to close the poll. And as we're wrapping that up, Becky, I'm going to ask you, maybe now or maybe later I'll make sure we address this, but what do we do about non-traditional students looking for internships? That seems to be a big part of today's audience.
Okay.
All right, so I'm going to close it in 5 seconds. Just select one of the answers and hit submit, please. And we've got about 80% of the audience who has already plugged in, and I'll just give you the answer. It's looking like 55% of our audience has not had a prior internship, and the other 45 or so have had an internship. I'm going to go ahead and close this poll, everybody. Thank you. All right, Becky, back to you.
Okay. So as far as a non-traditional student trying to find an internship, obviously, you know, an internship is really the best way into a firm. It gives you a chance to learn about the firm. It gives the firm a chance to learn about you. And I know that this is it's a little more difficult coming from an experience standpoint versus a traditional student standpoint. But again, I would encourage everyone to think about who you already know and how they can connect you. If you're working in industry, chances are wherever you're working has an accountant. Do you know who that is? And is there anyone there? Is there anyone at your current employer that might be able to introduce you? And even if that accounting firm is not one where you would like to work, certainly worth talking to somebody from that firm and gaining some insight and asking them, you know, do you know anybody that might be able to introduce me to such and such firm? Again, accountants know everyone. It's really just amazing. So that's something to think about as you're going through this search. Internships aren't necessarily for everyone. If you're a more experienced professional and you've been working for the last 20 years in industry and you want to make the change over to public, certainly I would be prepared to really talk about how your experience in public industry carries over into public accounting. So just a couple of things to be thinking about, and we'll talk some more about this at the end of the presentation. I've thought about a few things. Okay. You know, as far as once you've landed an interview, what should I do? What do I need to do to convince this employer that they should hire me? And I was actually helping a student with this very question just several weeks ago. You really need to be prepared to explain to them why they should hire you. And you need to be able to demonstrate that you have good interpersonal and soft skills because these skills matter just as much as your technical ability. Do you have decision-making and critical thinking skills? How about conflict resolution? Can you think of an example in your previous employment where you've taken a problem and brought it to resolution? You need to be able to explain why you want to work there and what you can contribute. And again, being able to articulate how your previous experience can translate into valuable skills in this firm. And what attributes do you possess that really separate you from your peers? You really need to be able to talk yourself up without being obnoxious, but you really do need to show that you have confidence in your abilities and that you are the person that these people want to hire. And again, going back to the beginning of the presentation where I talked about doing some research and figuring out what it is you really want and where you want to go, really helps you answer these types of questions. Part of this presentation I had really prepared for the traditional students, maybe that didn't have as much work experience. Just thinking about how your job, maybe if you work in retail or if you work in a food type of industry, how those jobs provided you with some experience that can translate into skills within public accounting, and you'd be really surprised when you sit back and think about it. Teamwork, decision making, conflict resolution, dealing with the public, all of those types of things. You want to be able to articulate how that will carry over. You know, I talked about what attributes really separate you from your peers. Pretty much everybody's going to say work ethic. Well, you need to be able to elaborate on that and explain why. You want to come into the interview ready to ask thoughtful questions. So if you've gone out and you've done your research on the firm, typically if you go to a firm's website, it's going to tell you about the firm's mission, its core values, its people. Come up with some questions about that. One of the examples that came up here at WellsColeman, we had a prospective employee come in and say, I see you've won the Best Places to Work award for 3 years in a row. What in particular does your firm do to continue to win this award? And that particular question just really impressed that interviewer, because it showed that this person has really done their research and they've really taken the time to get to know us versus just coming in for an interview. So here's the Best Places to Work question. Job-specific questions. This is something I never really thought of when I was looking for a job many years ago. But these questions actually demonstrate to the interviewer that you've thought ahead. Do you need to choose a niche area? And this is a really big thing in public accounting firms. And typically a larger firm is going to ask you to specialize in one area or another, where maybe a smaller firm would ask you to be a generalist, so you would work with both areas. What kind of hours are required? We all know that accounting is not a 9-to-5 job, but exactly how many hours are required? Do I need to work Saturdays and Sundays during busy season, or do I work Saturdays, or do you not work weekends at all? Do I need to travel? Again, and I think I mentioned this earlier, traveling for work is not always a wonderful thing. It can become very stressful if, you know, depending where you are as far as where you are in life, and if you have things that where you need to be at home a lot. What types of training does the firm provide? Do you send me to Chicago to train for a week, or do you do everything on the job? Am I learning everything as we go? How do you train your new people? So these are the types of questions to ask your interviewer. Okay, based on the participants here in the audience, you probably really didn't need to hear all of that, but I felt like I should throw it in there anyway. These are also questions that you can ask people while you're networking with them. If you're at a state society function and you're having lunch and you're talking about their firm, just ask people these same kinds of questions. They'll be happy to help you out. Jeff, I think we are rolling through and getting towards the end, and it's time for another polling question.
You got it. So the purpose of this question is just to get a sense of if you're having success with getting internships. And it's, have you had challenges getting an internship? Yes or no, or I haven't tried yet. You can select one and then hit the submit button. But I also want to use this as a way to tee up Q&A for Becky. If you're having challenges, why are you having challenges? Why do you think that is? And you know, if we could address some particular issues, let's do that. So we'll give folks another 10 or 15 seconds. And Becky, one of the comments I wanted to make was the questions you mentioned in that last slide. You said it might not be relevant, but it actually is. A lot of people have chimed in saying, what is an example of a good question? I mean, help me understand how to ask. Help me understand how to impress Becky when I'm in the middle of an interview or I'm making a call into a firm. And those types of questions are important for, non-traditional, grads who are looking for an internship as a break into public accounting, for example, or students who are looking for their first internship. So I really like seeing those questions. All right, we've got 83% who have voted, and I'll tell you right now, Becky, so 37% have had some issues getting internships, 25% have not, and 39% haven't tried yet. I'm going to go ahead and close this poll. I'll give everybody 5 seconds to wrap this up so you can get your polling questions in, and send your questions into the panel. I'll be happy to ask Becky here in a few minutes. All right, Becky, back to you.
That wraps up my presentation. I do have a couple of books I would like to recommend, especially to the non-traditional students. Hello, Old Friend, A Resource Guide for Career Development is just a wonderful book. It's a short read, but there is so much good information in there. Mike Jones, who is the author of this book, was actually the speaker I was talking about that suggested creating a networking log, and he talks more about learning about yourself and what it is you want. This is just a fantastic read, and there's so much wonderful advice in there. I found this a great resource, even for myself, as someone that's been in a position for a fairly long time, and I intend to be here forever. But there's just so much great advice in there that I can provide to others. So this book, I believe, is actually available for free for Kindles, and it's also available on Amazon.com.
And that was called Hello, Old Friend by Mike Jones?
Yes, here we go. And again, that's available via Amazon. The second one is probably one that a lot of you have heard of. It's called Now Discover Your Strengths by Marcus Buckingham. It talks a lot about various areas of strengths. Again, this has a Strengths Finder exercise in it, which you can also purchase online, I think, for $20. It's a pretty intense quiz, and what it does is it will rank your strengths, I believe, on a scale of 1 to 5. And it'll tell you whether you're basically somebody who is an executor, somebody who is focused on getting jobs done, if you're a people person, if you're a strategic person. And knowing where your strengths are is really going to help you as you're going through this interviewing process. Because, again, this is something that you can use to convince your interviewer that they should hire you. Strategic thinking is a real big buzzword these days, but it's great to be able to articulate where your strengths lie. So I would certainly recommend those two books. Marcus Buckingham's book is a little more intense and probably not as much of an easy read as Mike Jones' book, but certainly I would recommend that.
Becky, if it's okay, I'm just going to start kind of jumping in here with questions because we have a lot. And we'll just keep this as part of the presentation. As we wrap up in a few minutes, though, I do want to share with everyone an opportunity to get a free CPA exam flashcard app, but we'll discuss that in a minute. So we get a lot of questions based on, hey, I'm an introvert and I'm really good at accounting, but networking and interviewing are challenging for me. And one of the questions I got was, what's the best way to handle the fact that I get nervous during an interview?
Practice. Lots and lots of practice. I think I mentioned this earlier in the presentation, I was the same way, but the more you practice, the better you get. And go to your career centers. These people are professionals, and they will be able to give you feedback, and they can give you pointers. The biggest thing for me is practice and preparation.
Absolutely. I mean, that is a fact of life, and I think the natural follow-up is, well, how do I get practice? Well, if you're a student, it's easy because you've got built-in interviews in your campus recruiting. Events like Meet the Firms nights through Beta Alpha Psi are amazing because you get in a line and you get to talk to people. Practice asking those questions. That is uncomfortable for people at first. Then you realize the questions are what start conversations. It's what make you memorable. And I guess on the flip side, if you're an experienced person, it's going to be practice as well, but that comes with networking and it comes with practicing with your interviews. The fact is you're just going to have to get an interview and practice. There's not much working around that. Any other comments on that, Becky?
Again, networking doesn't have to be creepy.
Hmm.
You can look for different types of opportunities. I really prefer to be in small groups. And there are certainly a lot of small group offerings in the Richmond, Virginia area. You have to find the one that's right for you, and the more practice you get, the more comfortable you become. It's really just that simple.
Becky, I know you work in recruiting. I mean, you're on the accounting side, but you're also involved in recruiting. Is a cover letter important to you as someone who's evaluating the potential fit of a hire?
Not if I've already met the person. If it's somebody that's sending me an email or a cold call, yes, it is important, but not as much as the resume and the first impression. And in these days, when somebody can email you their resume, just a nice introduction in the body of the email is fine with me.
I would agree with that, and I think that if you are going to use a cover letter, this goes back to the stories that Becky mentioned earlier. There are a pretty common set of skills that an employer is looking for. Becky listed them. And Becky, one thing I advise students or CPAs or job seekers in general to do is formulate those stories that display the skills. So, here is a time in my life when I had to work in a team and we faced this obstacle and we accomplished this outcome. And actually rehearse it, because you may not get asked the question, but you then can work that in to your conversations. And you use examples like how I overcame adversity, how I made decisions, how I participated in a team, and those types of answers, which are really just your stories, make the connection to the person sitting across from the table. It's one thing to say I have work ethic. It's another thing to say I grew up working on a farm, or I worked my way through college, or I'm a CPA with 20 years experience, and I've been promoted. Whatever it is, leverage those stories. And Becky, would you agree that's a great way to make a connection, whether it's in an interview or in a networking setting?
Oh, absolutely. I know that years ago we interviewed a potential staff person here, and this person happened to mention, well, I'm from Pittsburgh, and well, I'm from Ohio. So we automatically had that connection. So it's somebody immediately that I'm going to remember. But then being able to give these specific job experience stories is definitely, that definitely can put you at the front of the pack, because you're going to make yourself more memorable to your interviewer.
I love it. Earlier in the presentation, you mentioned taking a skills test. I'm not sure if you remember that, but one of our attendees wants to know if you could repeat the website where you could access that skills test. I can't remember what she's referring. Do you recall what she's talking about?
It's actually called the Strengths Finder. And if you Google Strengths Finder, you'll get a whole bunch of hits. And it's part of Marcus Buckingham's book, Now Discover Your Strengths.
Yep. By the way, that's a great thing to do for an interviewee, because when I'm interviewing folks, I want to understand where your strengths lie. Strengths Finder, which I have taken, helps me understand what I'm good at, and it helps me understand what I'm not so good at. Being able to articulate that really helps make a connection between a candidate and a prospective employer. Glad you asked that question. I try to get into. Okay, here's another one. Can we talk for a minute about folks who are making a transition between, one industry or maybe private industry and public accounting, Becky? And I'm just curious, just candidly, how you would be reviewing a resume or meeting someone who said, "Hey, Becky, I've spent 10 years in industry. I'm looking to get into public accounting. I don't want to start at the entry level. What do I do?" And I'm just curious sort of how you would think through that, because I've seen that question pop up a few times today.
Yeah, again, I think it's being able to sell yourself and to explain what you've done previously that can really translate into valuable skills for this potential employer. I actually have an accountant here at WellsColeman that chose accounting as a second job. He was a disc jockey before he decided to go back to school and get his accounting degree. And then he worked in private industry, and then he came over to public. But I'll tell you how we met this guy. It was at a Virginia Society of CPAs function, a networking function. He said hello to the managing partner during the function. He followed up with an email and his resume. "Hey, I'd really like to talk to you because I really liked hearing about your firm, and your core values mesh with my values, and I would really like to talk to you." Bam, he's in.
It doesn't get any more succinct and clear than what you just said. I mean, that's exactly it.
So definitely don't discount these opportunities that are put forth by these state societies. I know the Virginia Society is just great about providing these opportunities to students and to people that are working in other industries. This young man was working at a private company, but he happened to come to this function, and all he did was listen to the presentation. He got the information, he followed up, and he really showed that he wanted to be a part of this team.
I am passing along to the audience. The AICPA also has a young CPAs organization. You can Google that, and it'll connect you with that group. It's an excellent networking site. I noticed that less than half the audience, I think, have plugged into their state society. I totally agree with you. I'm in Florida. They have an excellent state society here. The thing is about the state societies is they know all the CPAs in the state because they're typically members. That means the employers are members. So you take that, you play the long game there and connect with that state society. You will get connections. Remember, you're hearing a CPA who runs recruiting at a mid-market firm saying that the best hires for them are the ones that they know. And making those connections, getting to know people is critical. So whether you're a student looking for an internship, a professional looking to change, you've been out of the game for a while, it's going to take that extra step. Wouldn't you think, Becky?
Oh, absolutely. One thing, I went to a presentation about a year or two ago, and one thing that the presenter said was, I'm going to be really interested to see how many of those that are attending this presentation today actually follow up by connecting with me on LinkedIn after the presentation is over, or by sending me an email. So that's always something to be thinking about as you're attending these presentations this week. If you're in Michigan and I'm in Virginia, go ahead and connect anyway, because I might have some connections in Michigan.
Yes.
It's really up to you to follow through when you meet people
Becky,
that have experience where you want to go.
I want to add on to that. This whole event, okay, Meet the Firms Week, is an opportunity for students and young CPAs, primarily, or lower experienced CPAs, to apply to firms on Accountingfly. And we look at this as a networking event. We're advising firms to connect with the people who are applying to them, even if they're not hiring in the location where the student is at. This is a networking event, and I love the example. Maybe you're in Virginia, but the student is in Michigan. Doesn't hurt to make that connection. Um, Selena chimes in about LinkedIn. This is an important topic because a lot of us use LinkedIn. Just to proceed with caution on how you use LinkedIn. You don't want to be perceived as sort of this hungry, aggressive student looking for employment. She says it's best to become a fan or to follow them and asking content-specific questions and their opinions before asking about opportunities. She's advised us to proceed with caution, and I like that because you don't necessarily want to go for the hard sell. You want to build a relationship.
Right, and I completely agree with that. And I know that when I'm actually writing articles on LinkedIn, I'm very careful to just state the facts. You want to be careful not to state anything that might be perceived as a very personal opinion. You need to be careful not to write anything that somebody might see as potentially offensive. Just very straightforward and factual. And I know that a couple of times I've actually had people come back and try to argue them, not because not because they were offensive posts or anything like that. I think one of my articles was actually on finding a job and how to do that. And basically they came back and said, well, I've done all these things. Why am I still not finding the right job? But again, yes, proceed with caution.
Before I give you the last word, Becky, and say thanks and wrap up the call, I want to tell everybody about an interesting opportunity. So if you are a student or if you have not yet passed the CPA exam and you're considering taking the CPA exam, I want to tell you about a really cool offer that's available to meet the firm's participants through one of our sponsors, Surgeon. So I'm sending across a link right now to a page on our site where you can learn more about Surgeon CPA Review, and you can download their flashcard app. They've got 2,200 questions that cover all 4 parts of the exam. It's completely free. You'll see a link where you can get it on Google or Android. Thanks to the team at Surgeon for making this available to our members. I've downloaded it. It is very nifty. Even if you're thinking about taking the exam in the future and not yet prepared, might as well get it handy because it's free right now. And then the other piece is we're going to try something a little bit new, and I'll take your feedback on this. I have no idea how this is going to work, great or not, but you'll see on that page that we have a comment section. It's really easy to add a comment. So right now, for the next hour or so, Liz Kohler, who is one of the test prep gurus, the CPA exam teachers for Surgeon CPA Review, is going to be answering questions about the CPA exam, about their app, about some of their offers. She's just on hand to answer your questions. So if you're a CPA exam potential test taker, go to that link that I just sent out on our blog. We use a comment section called Discus, and at the bottom you can fire off questions. So she'll respond to you. You'll actually get a little notification when she does respond, and so we'll see how that goes. But make sure you download that app. It's an awesome CPA exam app. Also at 2 o'clock Eastern, we'll be kicking off the session on the future of your career. What will your career look like in 10 to 15 years with Michael Elliott? This is going to be a really cool session talking about how billing is going to change, how teams that are organized is going to change over your career, how consolidation is affecting your career, and how technology is changing your career. So please see us for that session later on. Okay, we'll wrap this up. Becky, we have learned a ton today. Thank you for putting the time into this presentation. I've put out your Twitter handle so that people could follow you. And I just want to say thanks and give you the last word, okay?
Thank you. I've really enjoyed this. I certainly appreciate this opportunity to speak with everyone. I do have this one last slide up with my contact information. Please connect with me via LinkedIn. I'm not quite as active on Twitter, but I do post on LinkedIn regularly. If you have specific questions, please feel free to email me. I will respond. Again, I challenge all of you to connect with me on LinkedIn. I'd love to hear from you.
I think that's a great idea because Becky knows people. Trust me. And if you have feedback on our sessions, you can put that in the survey. You can email me. I won't get to you immediately, but I'll get back to you quickly. Becky, great job. take it easy. Go enjoy the rest of your day, and thanks for being a Meet the Firms week. We'll see the students and folks from CPA Academy in a couple of hours. Everybody have a nice break, and we'll check in with you soon. Thanks a lot, Becky.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.